Hi, Kyle. Can you talk about the Simmonds move? It's been described as a match made in hockey heaven, given his what he can bring to the team on the ice, off the ice, and in the community.
Well, I think we were excited to get that one done. Like Buffalo earlier in the week had given Wayne permission to speak to team, so that allowed us to actually speak with him directly just about what we saw as the potential fit here, Lance, and what he could bring to the club in terms of his character and his contributions in the locker room, which we knew from his previous stops what we could expect there, which was an element that we were searching for, and we're happy that we found with Wayne on the ice. We feel he's healthy now. We kind of have a good grasp on the health issues that had plagued him for the last couple of seasons, and we're looking forward to him working with our performance team and medical team here to get him up and rolling. And we think we have a really solid role for him on the ice. It's not just one of these pure off-ice fits or anything like that. We think he's going to be a very good player for us this season, and we're excited to have him here as a Maple Leaf.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go with Justin Cuthbert from Yahoo. Go ahead, Justin.
Hey, Kyle, I know it's a bit early, but where do you envision Wayne slotting in the lineup? And if you have earmarked a position for him, how does it change the dynamic of that unit from, I guess, this past season?
Which unit in particular, Justin? Sorry.
Just where you've carved out a role, if you have, whether it be the third line or fourth line.
Sure. So the forward unit in general. Well, what we see right now is that we know we have on the right side is Marner and Nylander, certainly, and then we've re-signed Spez, who can play the middle and play the wing, and then we've got a group of younger guys that can kind of challenge and move up and down, whether it's your Robertsons or Hollanders, Patans, etc. And so we think we've got a role for him inside there. Obviously, in the top end of the group, as of this moment, you have Janssen, Hyman, Marner, Nylander, Mikheyev, and so the door is open for challengers above, and that's in this flat cap system and the way that it's going to be. We're gonna have lots of opportunity for players like this, and continuing on here in free agency for players who are looking to grow, and that includes our own guys internally and different players from the outside looking in that might see this as a good opportunity for them. And when it comes to the actual slotting, I think that will in the end, of course, come down to Sheldon, but also how things mesh together as we finally get into training camp and into the season starting here as we go from fall to winter.
Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you. We'll go to Josh Clipperton from the Canadian Press. Go ahead, Josh.
Hey, Kyle. I'm just wondering, just looking at the market in general, what you sort of seen the first couple hours, what in terms of talking to a guy, there's a lot of unknowns, obviously, just across the league, what it seems like in terms of money out there, what guys are looking for, just what your sort of impressions have been early.
I think it's been slow relative to what I've experienced in the other, I guess it's been 6 other free agencies or 5 other free agencies since coming to Toronto. And I think that's a combination of, number one, the economics and the salary cap remaining flat and the dollars perhaps being scarce. And then also the interview period prior to free agency being eliminated this year. So I think it's the confluence of both the cap staying at 81.5 and the interview period being gone that makes things slow. So with Wayne, with the permission from Buffalo, we were able to speak with him before, and that really helped once we got to noon, have things go very quickly. We had an idea from them what they would be looking for. With the others, you're just starting those conversations now. So that's the reason for I think why it's slow out of the gate, and especially when you combine the two together, I think that's going to be a reason why it might be slow here for the day and night. And that's why it was a good idea by Steve to do this media conference now versus wait till late in the night with maybe there won't be much to report and people are past deadlines and ready to spend time with their families or go to bed.
We all appreciate that. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks.
Thanks, Josh. We'll go to Kevin LeGrand from the Toronto Star.
I'll second the whole idea of doing this early, especially after the second round of that draft. Wayne seems like a guy who's really rooted in the community, happy to give back, happy to do some charitable work, very comfortable talking about Black Lives Matter. Is that the kind of guy that you also need in the room? Some diverse voices and a guy who really knows what it is to be a pro?
Well, I think at any workplace, the more diverse it can be, the better, Kevin. And I think as we saw this year, as we went through the social unrest and the racial issues and racism that came to the forefront beginning in May, and for and the circumstances by which it did were obviously awful. But I think it is a vital conversation for us to have, especially in hockey and in every walk of life, that we're confronting these issues, and we're part of progress and change. And anybody on our team, regardless of their race or who they are, that can speak about them and wants to speak with them and hold the group accountable is key. And Wayne has been a part of that from the beginning, and willing to speak openly about it and be a force for change. And so that is something that is very important for us. And I know in speaking to he and Eustace King, his agent, is important for he and his wife and their family as well. And so I think that's just going to be a great fit here overall in Toronto, and the voice he can lend to these issues and help our players and our organization with as we continue to try to bring about change.
Thanks a lot, Kyle.
Kevin, we'll go to Mike Zeisberger, NHL.com.
Yeah, thanks for doing this, Kyle. I mean, in general, what, now that you've addressed a little bit being tougher to play against, would you like to augment that, or what are you still looking to do in the next few days?
I think we would like to augment that further, Lance, with what we do next with our team. That's for sure. I think we're openly looking to improve all over. I think that our depth on defense and who we actually have in terms of young players and guys signed there we're good with that. We might look for a little bit of a different type of defenseman in that role, and a depth role. The forward group, of course, at the top, we've got a lot of belief in those guys and their talent level. And it's just trying to find people that we can add around them that can push the group to a different level. So Wayne being one, even Spez coming back, the voice that he carries and the impact that he makes is important for us. Wayne adds to that in terms of his character and his leadership, and the way that he goes about playing the game every day, not only in games, but in practice and in training and everything of that nature. So we're still continuing to look to add that, and with our cap space that we have, continue to try to make the team better. I think as it goes on, we'll have more opportunity for trade as well, and there's still lots of free agents out there that fit needs that we have. So those conversations are ongoing, and will continue to be. Usually by the end of this day, teams have addressed most of their needs, and most of the top guys have signed. I don't know if that will be the case as the day goes longer here, but that's where we're at now.
Thank you.
Mark Masters, TSN. Go ahead, Mark.
Thank you. Kyle, when you look at bolstering the blue line, do you like what you see out there in terms of options in free agency, or is that something that you're more likely to address via trade? I think there are options in both places right now, Mark. So we're exploring both, as I think we have to, and we've talked about in these previous gatherings. It's an area that we would like to continue to improve. We do like the guys that we have signed right now, but we've also lost 2 players off our back end. We replaced one with Mikko Lehtinen, who will come from Jokert, where he's off to a good start there. But we need to continue to improve. We need to see our own players develop and continue to work towards their potential, whether that's the Dermots, Sandins, Lilligrens, et cetera, that have already played and we feel are capable of more. So we are looking both at free agents and at trade to try to continue to bolster our blue line. What's your sense of Alex Pietrangelo being out there, and do you feel like you have the flexibility to make a bigger splash in free agency? We have flexibility. It's just a matter of how big a splash we want to make, and I think the fear with that, in some regards, is just whatever you can look at it now and say, if you moved out one piece, then you bring in somebody else, and that's fine. But with the cap being flat, the impact of anything is not just going to affect this year in an in and out situation. It's going to affect the team for a couple of years down the road if the cap doesn't go. I saw Ken Holland's comments earlier about what he thinks about the salary cap remaining level for a few years, and especially as the pandemic rolls on and you see the case numbers today, I don't know that there's a light perhaps to showing that would give us a ton of confidence that the world is going to be back to normal very, very soon, though we're hopeful that we can all get back together in the rink as soon as possible. So when you see those comments, what has happened here in the economy in the world in the last 7 months now, I think that's going to be an economic reality of the game, and we have to be mindful of that as well as we navigate through these waters with players, and knowing that it's not just going to affect
what's happening on our team now, but a year from now and 2 years from now with various different free agents of our own.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. We'll go to Steve Simmonds from Toronto Sun.
Kyle, hi. There was a situation in baseball a number of years back where free agency kind of started the way it did today, and then it just stopped. And at the end, a month later, 2 months later, there was all kinds of bargains to be found at a reasonably low price. Do you see if playing the waiting game might work in your favor through something like this, where you're seeing so many players at the higher level not being signed?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I think this kind of feels a little bit, and how baseball is now, even, free agency opens, but it seems, especially in baseball, like the bigger name guys, I think that there's some recency bias around, because I think back to Bryce Harper in 2019 or 2018-19 there, where it seemed to go on forever, and it was between, Washington and Philly, and there was one other team that escapes me, I think, that was in the mix as well, but it went really in spring training began before Harper signed, and I've always kind of watched that. And even in same kind of similar thing happens in basketball a little bit, in football, where hockey seems to be one where it was in previous years, where the buzzer would go, and maybe because of the interview period or whatever the reasons were, players would kind of rush and sign, and there was a few guys that would hang around for a week, but it was mostly done. I do think that you're right, Steve, that this could be a situation where things sort of linger on, and there are players, because of the economics and the salary cap remaining flat, and just the economic situation facing a lot of clubs and owners, where there are players that could be available later on. It's something that we've thought about, and I think it's even been some of the conversations we've had today with the agents and players, that we do present a good opportunity on forward and on D to with the guys that we can have these players play with. So if they're going to accept something lower than what they thought, this could be a good landing spot. So we're trying to remain as patient and as flexible as possible. So I would agree with your assessment.
Thank you.
We'll go with James Myrtle from The Athletic. Go ahead, James.
Hi, Kyle. I was just wondering, have you had conversations with Alex Pietrangelo and his camp, and what have those conversations been like? And do you expect those to go somewhere in the near future?
We have talked to Don Meehan, but I've not talked to Alex at this point. And I think they know where we stand and what our interest is, and also what our limitations are. But I think that any of those conversations would, not that I want to take the out here, but I think those are private between Don and myself, and I would just like to leave them at that, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. We'll go to Terry Koshin from the Toronto Sun. Go ahead, Terry.
Hey, Kyle. James kind of beat me to that and masters it earlier with Pietrangelo, but I guess the big question, if that was ever to happen, how would that work for you, given that you've said to us a few times, you don't want to make trades and possibly eat away at the depth up front to make something like that happen?
Yeah, I think, it's stuff like that, Terry, that Brandon and Lawrence and myself and Shannon, we talk about every day. If we're going to do certain things, and different scenarios come across every day or every couple of days that force you to do some thinking on these things and answer some tough questions about your team and what you may have to do. So we would have to find a way to make that work, and not just in this instance, but in other situations that come across. And we wouldn't want to eat away at the depth of our group, but if we have a chance to make our team tangibly better, I think we would always look at that. I think I'd go back. I think it was Lance that asked it, or I'm not 100% sure, but the issue now with the cap, in the past you could always kind of forecast, and we were always very, very conservative in our forecast of the cap. We would think it was, in order to give ourselves the best planning as possible, it was going to be $1 million or $2 million, that it was going to be going up per year, just to stay on the conservative side in our forecasting. And now I think you have to forecast, if you're going to be safe, that it's going to be flat or close to flat. So anything that we do now above certain levels will certainly impact not just this year, but the subsequent years, because I don't think the pie is going to be growing with regards to salary cap space. So it's not only thinking in the present in a straight binary in and out type situation. It's also, how does everything that we do affect our players that are going to become free agents or have different rights in the subsequent years. So 21, 22, 23, et cetera.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Kyle.
Thanks, Terry.
We have 3 more questions. We're going to go with Mike Tracos, Raphael Guimet, and Jonas Siegel. We'll start with Mike Tracos. Go ahead, Mike.
Hey, Kyle. It's no secret that Tampa Bay added Patrick Maroon, and then they got Barclay Goodrow and Bogosian and Shen as the season went on to kind of augment their skill. How much was that in the back of your mind in acquiring Simmonds? And it seems like we've seen a lot of those types of moves, whether it was Josh Anderson going to Montreal or Wiki signing today or Gudis going also to Florida.
Yeah, thanks, Mike. I think this is something that's been on our mind really going back in the season to the acquisition of Kyle Clifford in regards to something that we are looking to add to our team and want to add to our team. So, that's sort of the goal, and what we're trying to do is, yes, we would like to become a harder team to play against. And I think more than that, I think it's the toughness and character by which those guys operate every day, not just in the games that everybody sees, but how they carry themselves in the community, what they're able to do in terms of building team chemistry, team culture, and so on and so forth. So it is something that's important to us. It's, and even the Muzzin acquisition, I think, was the start of that, and maybe not as noted for fighting or different things like that some of the other guys you mentioned are, but certainly a tough-minded player and tough-minded person that can play very difficult minutes. So it's something that is very important to us as we grow and augment our skill. I think our skill has always been there, but it's the parts around the edges of the group that are really going to propel that skill level to the next level of success, and that's what we believe.
Thank you. Go Raphael Guimet, Radio-Canada. Go ahead, Raphael.
Hi, Kyle. You just spoke about culture, and I was wondering, aside from Austin Morgan, pretty much all of your leadership group is now from the Toronto area or the province of Ontario. Was that part of a plan at all when you first came in as a GM for this team, and how does that help the team actually?
Well, it helps the team on travel costs for sure coming in, so that helps, Raphael. But it hasn't been a part of our thinking at all. If a player can help us, it doesn't matter to us where they're from whatsoever. So I think it's just convenient the way that it's worked out, but it's not something that we've ever planned was to have a lot of Toronto guys or Toronto area guys. It's nice because they're around in the summer and they're at the facility and different things like that, and they're involved in the community, and some of them guys that are not from here remain here now, and I just think it's great. I think it's great overall for the players to be a part of the community, but at the same time, it's not they're here for the majority of the year in a normal year, but it's not really doesn't really play into the fact of whether we're acquiring them or not, where they're from. But it is a nice added bonus if they are from here.
And just as a quick follow-up, do you expect him to now come train in Mississauga? Would that only be on a voluntary basis?
I would say that that's totally up to Wayne. Our facility, as long as the public health allows us to, will be open and following very strict guidelines for operation that the NHL and the Ontario government, Toronto Public Health set out. But I also know that Wayne has a pretty good situation here. He trains with Matt Nickel, who we've got a great relationship with, and Matt has done a great job in getting Wayne into great shape and healthy. And so whatever Wayne decides to do, we support. The players coming to the facility, that's great. If not, our staff is able to work with whomever they're working with to make sure we're all in alignment and ready to roll.
Thank you. We'll finish out with Jonas Siegel from The Athletic. Go ahead, Jonas.
Hey, Kyle, you mentioned Wayne's health. Do you think there's a chance of a bounce back now that he's kind of further along from some of his injuries?
Well, it's interesting, Jonas. I think that the pause and the break probably, though, there's 7 teams that didn't participate. There's probably a few players on each of those 7 teams that's been battling nagging stuff throughout the year, had some surgeries that have limited their ability to train in past seasons. And I know that was one of the things that impacted Wayne. And this was the first really summer and now into fall where he wasn't recovering from an operation in the off season, which he didn't want to do during the year. And I think everyone has read now the stuff that he was playing through in Philadelphia near the end there. And so in speaking to him and people around him, this has been the first off season and not having now gone on to 7 months for him where it's a chance to really get your body back right. And so as much as this is a horrible situation for the world, there are select people, mostly, athletes or or people in other lines of work where this is a chance to recharge and get 100% healthy and be ready to roll again. And we think Wayne is one of those people and one of those athletes that can help us that way. So I do think there is something to that. And we're, I think with how competitive he is and how proud he is combined with this off time, we think he'll be a big part of things here and have a big impact on our team on the ice as well as off.